Hi everybody, this is Dr. Ari Tuckman. I'm a psychologist and author of a few books on ADHD, and I'm doing a video here for Attitude Magazine, a resource for folks with ADHD and the people who care about them. So what we're talking about today is a question that came in from a parent who studies with their son, and at night, the night before a test, he knows the material. Like, they study it, he knows it, he can answer the questions. Next morning, goes in to take the test, and it's not there. The stuff that he knew the night before, he seems to not know on the test itself. Unfortunately, this is a rather common situation. So let's talk about, what are some of the possible causes, and more importantly, let's talk about what you can do about it. So, one possible explanation here is that he gets anxious at the time of the test, that he's got some test anxiety, which is, pretty normal. Unfortunately, as I've talked about in some other videos, the more anxious we are, the less well our brain works. So we don't access our memories as well. It's there, but we can't get it. So, one of the ways that you can sort of see this is those situations where in the heat of the moment, you can't access something, whether it's taking a test or thinking of someone's name, and the more worked up you get about it, the harder you try, the less able you're able to get it. So in other words, the anxiety goes up, your memory goes down. As the anxiety goes down, as the situation ends or you move into a new situation, anxiety goes down, memory goes up. So that would indicate to me that, if that's the situation, that, what you want to do is work on feeling less anxious during the test or during the situation so that you can better access your information. There's a lot of different things you can do in terms of calming yourself down and focusing in and things of that sort. But the other thing you can do is study the material even more, kind of be even more confident about going in, because confidence, knowing you know your stuff, is a great antidote for anxiety. So related to that, the other possibility here is that at the time of the studying, this child knows the information, so it's there, but it's not there deeply enough. It's kind of there, but on the surface, in that by the next day, it's sort of gone. Like, he only sort of skimmed it, if you know what I mean, as opposed to really kind of digging that information into his long-term memory, really sort of understanding it, processing that information, thinking about it, connecting it to things that he already knows. The more deeply we process information, the more likely we are to remember it in a longer term kind of way. So unfortunately, for a lot of folks with ADHD, their working memory is not as strong as you would expect given what their intelligence is. And it's our working memory that is the part of our memory that takes information in the moment, processes it, thinks about it, does something with it, relates it to items in long-term memory that we already know, but then also takes that new piece of information and shuttles it into our long-term memory. So it kind of takes the information from the world and puts it into our long-term memory. Folks with ADHD, because their working memories tend to not be as strong and reliable, or because they get distracted onto other things, they tend to be less efficient learners. In other words, it takes a couple more exposures for them to really kind of get something into their long-term memory. So it might be that going through this a few more times, the material on the test, go through it a couple more times, process it more deeply, process it in some different ways, ask questions, do flashcards, that might be helpful. But just in general, for everyone, our brains remember best when we get multiple short exposures to something rather than one giant long exposure. So in other words, no all-night, cram sessions the night before, because that's one big one. And by the way, when you're tired, your memory retention is even worse. So much better to do, a few nights before, one each night, to sort of run through the material. It'll stick more easily. It'll take you less time to learn it, and it'll be there much more deeply. So I hope this video was helpful to you. If you like this one, you can find all sorts of other videos from myself, as well as some other good folks in the world of ADHD, at attitudemag.com.